Lucas, what is mental space psychology?
To me, mental space psychology is the new paradigm in psychology, where we see the space around and inside a person as the main primary organizing principle of the mind, which means that all things we think somewhere in this space, but the thing is, this is largely subconscious. And so you could say our knowledge is projected around us in the space around us, and over that we have our perception, and that is what our main thing is in our attention.
You said it is a new paradigm in psychology. In what way?
The existing paradigm is focused on how to get knowledge about the psyche, then partly about studying the brain, so that's the neuroscience part, then about behavior, and then a lot is studied on what people say, so in fact their words about what they think and what they write about what they think. But the thoughts themselves are highly elusive. And it's so that in a way you can say that a thought is only in your mind once. So you think something only once, and then it's gone. Now, you can tell about what you were thinking, you can tell about what you're sensing and what you see, but it's gone after you've done that. And mental space psychology opens another window on thought.
People very often say, I know exactly what it is, what I feel, what I think, and they cannot find the language, the words for it. Is that what you mean? That there is a translation process from thought to language.
George Lakoff was the clearest about that. He said our experience, so what we experience and what we think, is three-dimensional all around us, and our language is one-dimensional. And so when I tell you what I experience, I have to transcode from three-dimensional into one dimension.
And then we have to code it back, translate it back. So that is very fussy.
Yeah, when you want to understand me, you cannot understand me in another way than out from my words make up some three-dimensional experience in your own mental space. And then you say, oh yes, I know what you mean, but you don't know what I mean, because you just recreated your own experience in 3D in your own mental space on the basis of my signals. Also that I, as a social psychologist, became fascinated in how people create relationships, and then I hit on that people create the relationships in the mental space by having images of other people somewhere on a fixed location. And by having them on this fixed location, they create the idea of relationship. Now, again, this what is here is something subliminal, unconscious. So I'm not aware of it, but I can still, and that's some of these phenomena that I study. A person could say, yes, but this person, and then point at the direction where they have the image.
So, let me guess, this should be very significant for therapy.
You're right.
So it's not only a theoretical new paradigm, but it's also a quite new practical way of doing therapy.
Yeah, right. So it bridges the gap between theory and practice in a very strong manner. And you can say that it holds also a very strong promise for psychiatry. So now when a doctor, for instance, has a patient in front of them, and this patient is coughing and have difficulty to breathe and cuts of blood and loses weight, and so then the doctor will go through, okay, yes, that might be a lung issue, maybe lung cancer. Now, the diagnosis is not ready yet, because then this doctor sends the patient to the surgeon, and the surgeon has this tumor. And then they both know, yes, indeed. And then they still can check how malignant it is, but this is the total diagnostic process. Now, in psychiatry, we do have the list of symptoms. So in the DSM, and we can check. Okay, this symptom, that must be, let's say, depression or schizophrenia or something, or personality disorder. But then we have no place else to look for to verify. And there's not something like a tumor. And here comes mental space, because what we found out is that mental space is the place to look. For instance, when a person is depressed, they have something, often a black cloud in the mental space, or when they have a trauma, they have some area that is occupied by the trauma. And there are things that you can find very precisely. So, for instance, a very difficult diagnosis like borderline. You can find that people have other images of people inside their body space, and that makes them so difficult. So it's a new paradigm, but it's only a new paradigm insofar that we connect the existing spatial cognition, which is a small part of science, of neuroscience and of psychology, with this practical application in psychotherapy. And by doing this, you get a range of new insights that weren't there before.
I take it that you sometimes in the beginning couldn't believe it was real.
So I often say I'm the biggest skeptic about this, and that's helped me to learn. And we founded a foundation, the Society of Mental Space Psychology, which is just there to promote the new paradigm into the world.
And I think such a thing is needed, because the official academic world is not really accepting what you have proposed to them.
Well, I think the academic world is constructed in such a way that it has a hard time accepting anything new. That's how they organized it. And so every time when something new comes up, and this is not so new, it's not altogether new, but something new is coming up, there needs to be people who really try to promote it in a certain direction, because else it takes ages before, and then in this case it also means that the people who can profit from new technologies in psychotherapy will have to wait, so they're on the waiting list.
You also said it is not completely new, so there must have been an history. And nowadays, at the same time, lots of techniques in which mental space is already working, but there was no theoretical frame to connect them in.
So you could investigate that there is maybe 50 types of psychotherapy that use a lot of spatial interventions.
I was thinking that,
But they think maybe that it's working because of sometimes spirits, or the field, or systems, or something magical. They may have all kinds of interesting concepts to fill in the blank in their theory, because they don't know. And mental space psychology, explains, this is the reason why this is working. It works because people use space all the time, but they don't know because it's subconscious.
Now, I get this idea, now you're saying this, if space is used, it is very often used, or always used, has been used as a metaphor, and you are saying it's a reality in the workings of the mind.
Right, you cannot formulate it better. So when, for instance, when you have when a client tells a therapist, there's this issue standing in my way, so then the therapist would take it as a metaphor. So, and he may respond, interesting. So you think as if this issue is standing in your way. Yes, and then when we explore the mental space, we see that here's the client and the issue is here, and he cannot move forward because it's standing in his way.
Come to think of it, it's only logical, because when we, as biological systems, we start our lives, it's just space what we do as babies and children. So it's not really new, but you make it new.
Well, you could say that the scientists who have the same view in spatial cognition, they recognize that orientation in space is one of the basic skills
Yeah.
any organism needs to find food and mates and safety.
Yeah.
And that
I must put the food into my mouth and not my nose. You see, in
yeah.
space.
Well, this is already
Yeah.
and so the orientation in space is the basic skill, and the brain is our navigator.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the brain helps us to navigate in the outer world, but the outer world doesn't exist for the brain. The brain has a simulation of the outer world that it navigates, and all our knowledge is also a simulation of the world or of ourselves, and it navigates it in the same way.
So you can never have an abstract thought that is not based on very concrete spatial locations in the mind.
Right. Yeah.
I think
so let's agree on that.
Yeah, I think I understand.
Yeah.
now.
So, and I made this course. So this course is, I think, maybe 3 hours of video, and it shows all aspects that I know of at the moment, with some demonstrations and theoretical explanations. And I think when you have watched this, then you know exactly what mental space psychology means.
Dear viewer, at least I myself have discovered now what it really means. Thanks to Lucas.
Yeah, well, thanks, Gert.